cutting through the void as if the galaxy itself belonged to them. They called themselves the first and the last, the rulers of all races, the ones who shaped destiny to the Alphas. There was no power greater, no army stronger, no mind sharper than their own. For centuries, they crushed smaller races. They burned planets, they enslaved survivors, and they carved their name into the stones of broken worlds. Their admirals stood tall in golden halls. Their emperors wore crowns of metal forged from the ruins of conquered fleets. When the Alphas spoke, whole systems trembled. When they moved, galaxies bent. They carried a belief deep and unshakable, that they were the peak of creation, the untouchable force. They were Alpha, and everything else was prey to them. Other civilizations were nothing more than insects crawling in the dust of forgotten stars. The Alphas laughed at their pleas, ignored their alliances, and shattered their hope. Yet whispers had started. Quiet as dust in dark corners, some spoke of humans, a young race hidden on the edge of the galaxy. Their ships were small, their fleets weak, their numbers tiny compared to the endless legions of Alpha. To the Empire, humans were not even worth a glance, not even worth a word. The Council of Alpha dismissed the reports. One commander had returned with scars, speaking of human ships that fought differently, not with size but with strange precision. The Council laughed at him, calling him a fool. They told him that humans were fragile, soft, nothing but flesh and bone waiting to be torn apart. The commander bowed and left in silence, but his eyes carried a shadow no laughter could erase. On Alpha Prime, the jewel world of their empire, the skies were filled with warships lined in perfect rows. Shining like black blades under the twin suns, the people cheered, their voices rising as their fleets prepared to launch yet again. The Emperor stood on a balcony above the great city, his cloak flowing, his teeth sharp as he smiled. "Let the galaxy know," he thundered, his voice echoing across the capital. "We are Alpha, we are eternal, we are the first, and we are the last," the crowd roared back, a wave of sound like thunder rolling through metal mountains. Children lifted small flags. Women painted their faces with crimson. Soldiers stood proud in polished armor. Every heartbeat of their people sang the same truth, the same faith that the Alphas were untouchable. But in the black of space, where their eyes did not reach, humans were moving, silent as shadows, quiet as breath. Their hands worked on steel and fire, in hidden docks carved into asteroids. Their ships were born small at first, sharp and fast, glowing with blue light that pulsed like living hearts. Each ship carried a promise that if the Alphas ever came, humanity would not bow. The Alphas mocked the stars themselves. They said no one could challenge them. No one could bend their knee. No one could shatter their name. But the stars did not answer. The stars only burned, cold and eternal, watching as one empire rose too high. Alpha fleets spread across systems, crushing one after another. The Emperor spoke of new wars, of new slaves, of new planets to burn. His admiral stood with him, nodding, their eyes gleaming with hunger. None of them cared about the whispers of humans. None of them cared about the shadows in the dark. But somewhere far from Alpha Prime, in a small shipyard hidden behind a broken moon, a human captain watched the stars. His face was tired, his hands scarred, but his eyes were sharp with fire. Beside him, his crew worked in silence. Every strike of their tools, every spark of their machines, every breath they took carried the same thought, the same promise. The Alphas believed they were Alpha, but they had no idea. The human captain whispered to the stars, his voice low but steady. "They think they rule reality. They don't know what's coming far away." In the endless void, Alpha warships cut through black space. Unaware, unafraid, and unprepared, their pride filled them like fire. But pride had always been the sharpest blade. One mistake, one misstep, and fire could burn its master too. The Alphas believed nothing could touch them. They believed their fleets were immortal, their worlds eternal. They believed that they were Alpha, the first, the last, the eternal. But belief is not truth, and soon the truth would come for them, carried on wings of human steel, lit by human fire. The galaxy held its breath, watching, waiting as the stage was set. The Alphas laughed in golden halls, drunk on pride, blind to shadows, and somewhere in silence, the humans sharpened their blade, ready to show them that even gods could bleed. The Alpha scouts moved first, their sleek ships sliding through the void like knives. Their sensors swept the stars, searching for any sign of resistance. The orders were simple: find the humans, map their colonies, and prepare them for fire. To the Alpha commanders, this was not war, it was cleansing. Humans were insects, and insects were meant to be crushed. But what the scouts did not know was that humanity had been waiting. For years they had watched the Alpha Empire, studying their movements, measuring their arrogance. They knew the Alphas never imagined a race so young could rise against them. That arrogance was humanity's shield. A shield built of silence, patience, and shadows. In the dark belts of asteroids beyond Eridani, hidden stations came alive. Lights flickered across Blackstone, massive gates opened, and ships stirred like beasts waking from long sleep. These were not the heavy, proud warships of Alpha. These were sharp, fast, and strange. Their hulls gleamed with a blue glow, a glow drawn from reactors that pulsed with unstable power. No other race dared to touch. Captain Reeves stood at the command deck of one such ship. The Indomitable, his face was marked with old scars. His uniform plain, his crew were silent. But their eyes burned bright. Each one of them knew what was coming. Each one had chosen to fight, knowing the cost. A quiet alarm echoed through the deck. A young officer looked up from his console. His voice steady. "Captain, Alpha Scouts have crossed the line. They will reach Colony 12 in less than 2 cycles." The crew tensed, some gripping their chairs, others whispering silent words to themselves. Colony 12 was small, just a handful of families and miners. But to the Alphas it was a message. Their plan was clear: destroy it to show the galaxy that humans were nothing. Captain Reeve did not move. He stared at the glowing stars on the screen, his voice calm. "Then we meet them first," engines roared to life. The Indomitable and her sister ships, sliding free of the asteroid shadow. Their hulls shimmered, then disappeared into black. Human ships were not just fast, they were invisible. They carried cloaks built from stolen scraps of alien tech and human genius. The Alpha Scouts sped on, laughing. Their commanders boasted to each other of how quickly the humans would fall. Their words were sharp with cruelty, blind to the shadows already moving around them. A whisper passed through the human fleet, the kind of whisper that carried weight. "For Earth, for all of us, without warning." The first strike fell. Blue fire erupted from the Indomitable, lancing through the void in a single flash. 3 Alpha destroyers were gone, torn apart before they could even send a signal. Silence followed, a silence heavy with shock. The survivors staggered, their voices breaking across comms. "Impossible, it cannot be." Another volley. More ships shattered. Alpha pride burned away in an instant. Their commanders screamed for order, but fear had already taken root. They had thought this mission would be a hunt. Instead, they had become the prey. Back on Alpha Prime, alarms echoed through command halls as reports arrived. The council gathered, their faces pale under the golden light. The Emperor leaned forward, his eyes narrow. "You say humans destroyed our scouts?" he hissed, his voice was low. But the hall trembled. The Admiral bowed, his armor clinking. "Yes, my lord, with weapons we cannot identify. Ships faster than light, cloaked from sight. They tore through us like shadows." The Emperor's jaw tightened. His pride burned, but beneath it fear stirred. He forced his voice to steady. "They are nothing. We are Alpha. Send more fleets. Show them what it means to defy us." Orders spread like fire. Fleets mobilized, war drums thundered. Alpha arrogance refused to bend, refused to believe, yet far away, humanity was already preparing in hidden hangars. Engineers worked with bare hands, welding steel under the light of burning torches. Pilots sharpened their skills in dark simulators. Soldiers whispered promises over the names of lost families. Humanity did not fight for pride. Humanity fought for survival. Back aboard the Indomitable, Captain Reeve listened to the reports. His voice was quiet but sharp. "The Alphas will come with fire and steel. They think their numbers make them gods." He turned, his eyes cold. "But we are human, and humans do not kneel." The crew nodded. Some were young, barely old enough to remember the first colonies. Others were veterans with scars older than their children. Yet all of them stood together, bound by something stronger than fear. The stars stretched endless before them, and in those stars war was coming. A war that would test every breath, every heart, every soul. The Alpha Empire believed they were eternal. They believed they were Alpha, the first, the last, the unbroken. But their scouts had already learned the truth, and soon the rest of the galaxy would see. In the silence of the void, the human fleet waited, cloaked, unseen. Their weapons hummed, their engines pulsed. Their time was near. and whispered by human lips across the stars. The age of Alpha was ending. The age of humanity had just begun. The black silence of space broke with a scream of fire. The Alphas had come at last, not scouts, not patrols, but a fleet. Their warships stretched like a wall across the stars. Engines burned crimson, hulls carved with sharp edges. Every ship carried the weight of arrogance, the belief that no one could stop them. They came for Colony 12, a quiet world of miners and farmers. Families looked to the sky, eyes wide with terror as Alpha destroyers blotted out the sun. Mothers pulled their children close, fathers clenched fists, knowing they had nothing strong enough to fight. The Alphas broadcast their message on every frequency, their voices cruel and mocking. Humans, you should kneel, you should beg. Your place is dust beneath the feet of Alpha. The crowd in the colony squares wept. The Alphas always delivered their threats before fire. They wanted their prey to feel fear. They wanted their enemies broken before the first strike fell. But this time was different. From the far edge of the system, hidden in shadows, humanity's silent fleet stirred. The Indomitable led them. Her hull cloaked in the darkness of space, Captain Reeve stood at the command deck. His voice steady. "They think this is our end," he said. "Let's show them it's only the beginning." Engines roared to life. Human ships emerged from the black. One by one, their blue glow flared like sparks, lighting the void. The fleet was small compared to Alpha's endless numbers, but every ship was sharp, fast, alive. The humans had no arrogance, no pride, only determination forged by survival. The Alpha commander laughed when human ships appeared. His teeth sharp, his voice cruel. "You dare show your faces? Insects who bite the boot? Crush them." Orders raced through Alpha comms. Weapons charged, cannons hummed. The first barrage lit the void, beams of red fire streaking across space toward the human line. But the humans did not stand still. The Indomitable rolled, her engines burning bright, fire mist, cutting through empty space. Human ships darted like shadows, fast and unpredictable. Their return fire came sharp and clean. Blue beams cut into Alpha hulls, tearing through armor. A destroyer exploded, then another. The laughter of the Alpha commander froze in his throat. On the colony below, humans lifted their eyes to the sky. At first they saw only flashes of fire, but then they saw something else. Hope. For the first time in living memory, Alpha ships were dying. Captain Reeve's voice rang through the fleet. "Hit them where they think they are strong. Break their pride first." The humans struck not at the weaker ships, but at the battleships in the center, the giants of Alpha's fleet. Symbols of their power, one by one, human weapons found their marks. Hulls cracked, engines tore apart, explosions filled the void. Inside the Alpha flagship, the commander slammed his fist on the console. "Impossible. They fight like no one we have faced. They are too few, they are nothing." But fear crept into his voice. Humans did not fight for glory. They fought for children on the colony below. They fought for worlds already lost. They fought for every name buried in Alpha's ash. That fury gave them strength no arrogance could match. The battle raged for hours. The Alpha fleet pressed forward, wave after wave, but the humans refused to break. They moved like hunters, striking quick, vanishing, then striking again. Their cloaks made them ghosts. Their fire made them legends. At last, the Alpha commander gave a desperate order. "Burn the colony. If we cannot crush their ships, we will destroy their people." Weapons turned toward the planet. A crimson glow lit the void. The people below screamed, their hope shattering in an instant. But before the fire could fall, the Indomitable cut across the Alpha line. Engines screaming, shields flaring. She unleashed everything at once. Blue light filled the black. The blast ripped through the Alpha cannons, tearing them apart before they could strike. The Alpha commander stared at the wreckage, his voice broken. "What are they?" On Earth, transmissions carried the battle across the hidden networks. Every human colony heard the news. Humanity had stood against Alpha and survived. Humanity had drawn blood, the galaxy too. Watched in silence other races, long enslaved, long broken, whispered to each other. The humans fight back, on the deck of the Indomitable. The crew sat in silence, their faces were pale, their hands trembling. They had seen death, they had seen fire, but they had also seen something more. They had seen the impossible. Captain Reeve looked at them, his voice quiet but heavy. "This is only the beginning. They will come back stronger. They will come with everything they have." He paused, his eyes like steel. "And we will be ready, far away. In the halls of Alpha Prime, the Emperor listened to the reports. His face twisted with rage. "They dare defy us," he growled. "Then let the stars burn, send the armadas. Erase them from existence. The war had begun, but for the first time, it was not the Alphas who carried fear across the galaxy. It was the humans, small in number, but fierce, unbroken and rising and above Colony 12, where smoke still drifted and families clung to each other. A whisper spread, soft but unstoppable. They believed they were Alpha, but tonight, we saw them bleed. War spread across the galaxy like fire on dry grass. The Alphas moved with fury, sending fleets into human space with a speed that shocked even their allies. Their warships blotted out suns, their cannons burned like storms. Entire colonies vanished under their wrath. They believed their power would crush humanity in weeks. They believed fear would silence the uprising before it spread. But the humans did not cower. They did not kneel, they fought back, not with overwhelming numbers, but with something far more dangerous: strategy. Captain Reeve stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, his eyes locked on the shifting holograms before him. Red marks glowed, Alpha fleets pouring into sectors one after another. Blue lights flickered, showing the smaller human ships scattered like sparks in the dark. His officers waited, tense, their hands tight on consoles. "They think we'll face them head on," Reeve said. His voice calm but edged with steel. "That is their mistake." The orders went out. Human fleets did not gather in one place. They split apart, vanishing into asteroid belts, nebula clouds, and broken moons. The Alphas moved in heavy lines, expecting to crush the enemy quickly. Instead, they found nothing. Empty skies, empty systems, silence. Then the attacks began. At first, it was whispers of fire. An Alpha cruiser destroyed near a gas giant, a supply line severed in deep space. A battleship ambushed in a dead nebula. The humans struck fast and vanished. Their ships too quick, their cloaks too sharp. Alpha admirals grew frustrated, their rage boiling in every order. "They are cowards," one spat, pounding his armored fist on the table. "They run, they hide. They refuse to face us in battle." But another commander, older and scarred, shook his head. His voice was low. "No. They are hunters." In the colonies freed from Alpha hands, the story spread. Families whispered it. Children repeated it. "The humans are hunters, and the Alphas are prey." The words traveled farther than fire, reaching ears that had long forgotten hope. Enslaved races, beaten and broken, lifted their eyes to the stars again. The galaxy had always seen the Alphas as gods, untouchable. Now, for the first time, cracks showed in their armor. The battles grew fiercer. One took place near the Veil Nebula, where colors of gas painted the void. The Alpha fleet arrived, confident. Their warships stood like black towers against the glowing light. But hidden inside the nebula, the Indomitable and her squadron waited. "Wait for it," Reeve whispered, as the Alpha ships pushed deeper. "Not yet. Hold." Every officer's chest felt like stone. The nebula's gas clouds hid them, but it also hid the enemy. Every heartbeat was a blade. Every second a wait, then at the perfect moment, the human ships lit their engines. They surged from the clouds, weapons blazing. Blue fire cut through red, tearing into Alpha hulls. The enemy reeled, caught off guard, their formation breaking. "Strike and fade," Reeve commanded. His ships did not stay. They tore through the fleet, destroyed 3 warships, and vanished back into the clouds. The Alphas fired wildly into the nebula, but hit nothing. In the aftermath, the Alpha commander slammed his claws on the console. "They fight like ghosts," he snarled. "We cannot strike what we cannot see." Back on Alpha Prime, the Emperor roared in anger as report after report came in. Ships lost, fleets delayed, supply lines cut. His golden throne shook under his grip. "How?" he demanded, his voice shaking the chamber. "How can insects defy us?" But the truth was already spreading. The Alpha Empire was not invincible. Their arrogance had blinded them. Their size had made them slow. Humanity had found the crack, and with every battle, they made it wider. On the Indomitable, the crew gathered in silence after the Veil Nebula raid. The young officer who had once trembled now smiled faintly. "Captain," she said, "we're not just surviving, are we?" Reeve looked at her, his scarred face calm. "No," he replied, "we're winning." The words echoed in the chamber, and for the first time since the war began, hope burned hotter than fear. But the captain knew the truth. The Alphas were far from finished. They would throw everything into this war. They would try to drown humanity in fire. and when they did, the galaxy would hold its breath. For now, though, the humans moved like shadows, striking, vanishing. Fell one by one. The hunters carved their mark into history, and somewhere in the dark of space, in the ruins of yet another destroyed Alpha ship, a single message burned into every comm sent from a human hand. We are not prey. We are the storm. The Alphas read the words with trembling claws, their pride cracked, their voices shaken. They had believed themselves eternal, but eternity was bleeding, and the wound was growing deeper with every battle. The war had only just begun, and already the galaxy was changing. The hunters had stepped from the shadows, and the so-called gods had begun to fall. The stars above the Eridani system glowed faint and cold. But beneath that quiet beauty a trap waited for weeks. Captain Reeve and his fleet had prepared this battlefield. Every rock, every shadow, every gravity well had been studied, mapped and twisted into a weapon. Humanity had no endless armies like the Alphas, but they had patience, cunning, and a hunger to win. The Alpha fleet approached with the confidence of gods. Their warships stretched wide. A wall of iron and fire engines thundered, banners of red light flashing across the void. They came to erase the humans, to burn away the shame of their losses. On their command decks, admirals barked with laughter. Their words carried the same arrogance as always. This ends today. The insects will be crushed beneath the heel of Alpha. But the hunters were already waiting. Hidden behind the fractured moons of Eridani, human ships floated in silence. Engines low, weapons hot, every pilot knew their role. Every gunner knew their target, and above them all, Captain Reeve stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, his eyes hard as steel. "Let them come closer," he said, his voice calm. "Let them believe." The Alphas surged into the system, their formations tight, their numbers overwhelming. Scouts scanned the void and found nothing. Admirals sneered. "They hide again, cowards, burn the moons. Leave no stone unturned." Cannons lit the dark, beams of red fire cutting across the broken moons. Explosions flared, rocks shattered, debris rained across the void. The Alphas laughed as silence answered. To them this was proof of victory. But then the silence broke. From behind the shattered moon the Indomitable appeared, her hull glowing with blue fire. At her back came dozens of human warships. Sharp and fast engines blazed, weapons screamed in a single coordinated strike. They unleashed their fury, the trap snapped shut. Gravity mines, hidden in the debris, flared alive, pulling Alpha ships off course. Their massive battleships collided, armor scraping, shields tearing. At the same time, hidden cannons on asteroids came online, launching waves of plasma fire into their exposed flanks. Chaos consumed the Alpha fleet. "Impossible," one commander roared, his voice breaking with shock. "This was empty!" "They cannot..." His words ended in flame as his ship erupted, torn apart by a precision strike on the colony below. Families huddled together, watching the skies. They had expected to see their death. Instead, they saw Alpha warships burning, torn apart, falling like black stars. Whispers spread in awe. "The humans, they fight back." The battle raged. Human ships danced around the massive Alpha vessels, striking weak points, vanishing before the enemy could respond. Blue beams carved holes in black hulls. Explosions lit the system like thunder. The Alphas tried to form ranks, but the gravity traps broke their order again and again.
Inside the Indomitable, Reeve's crew moved like one body.
Officers shouted updates, gunners fired with deadly precision. Young pilots flew with steady hands, every heartbeat was war, every breath a strike against the enemy. "Target their flagships," Reeve commanded. "Break their pride, and the rest will fall." The Indomitable led the charge. Cutting across the void, her cannons blazed, blue fire slamming into the Alpha flagship. The giant ship shook, shields crackled, metal screamed. For the first time in centuries, an Alpha admiral felt fear claw his chest. "Retreat!" one officer shouted. But the admiral snarled, "We are Alpha. We do not retreat." His words ended as a final barrage from the human fleet tore through his ship's heart. The flagship exploded, a burning star that shattered Alpha morale. Panic spread through their lines. Ships broke formation, some tried to flee, but cloaked human vessels blocked their path. Others fought on, but every strike was answered with precision. The hunters had them cornered, and the prey finally knew it. In the command halls of Alpha Prime, silence fell as reports came in. Fleet after fleet destroyed. The Eridani system lost, admirals shifted uneasily. Their emperor's eyes blazed with fury. Tricked? By insects? He spat, his voice shaking the chamber. They will pay. They will all pay. But his rage could not hide the truth. The Alpha Empire had suffered a wound it could not ignore. On the bridge of the Indomitable, the humans sat in silence after the last Alpha ship exploded. The void was littered with wreckage, burning like dying stars. The crew stared at it, tired, scarred, but alive. Reeve stood tall, his voice steady. This was not just a victory, he said. This was a message to the galaxy and to Alpha. They believe they are eternal, untouchable, but today, they learned the truth. His crew listened, their eyes burning with quiet fire. They are not Alpha anymore, he said. We are. The words spread, whispered through human ships, carried across colonies, repeated in the shadows of alien worlds. The Alphas had walked into a trap of their own arrogance, and the galaxy had seen them bleed. The Hunters had turned the battlefield itself into a weapon, and the Empire's pride lay broken in Eridani's ashes. But the war was far from over, and everyone knew it. The Alphas would return with greater fury, with larger fleets, with weapons born of desperation, and when they did, humanity would be waiting silent, patient, sharp as shadows in the dark. The age of arrogance was ending, and the age of the Hunter had begun. Alpha Prime burned bright under its twin suns, the jewel of the Empire. Its spires of black steel reached into the skies. Its streets glowed with gold, and its fleets encircled it like a crown of fire. To the Alpha people, it was eternal, indestructible. The heart of their pride, no enemy had ever reached it. No invader had ever dared, but now the humans dared for weeks. Alpha fleets had been lured away, broken, scattered. Humiliation spread across the Empire like rot. Their scouts destroyed, their armadas defeated at Eridani, their commanders killed, and in the silence between battles, humanity moved, silent and patient. Captain Reeve stood aboard the Indomitable, his hands gripping the railing of the command deck. Before him hung Alpha Prime, distant but shining. Its defenses were colossal. Millions of turrets, planetary shields, orbital stations, fleets that still dwarfed humanity's in number. His officers watched him, waiting, their faces tense but unbroken. We cannot fight them by numbers, Reeve said, his voice low but steady. We win by breaking their heart. He pointed to the glowing world ahead. Alpha Prime is that heart? The plan was madness. Some whispered, but no one argued. They had seen what arrogance had cost Alpha. They had seen what cunning had won humanity. And so in silence they prepared. The human fleet did not rush. They moved through shadows, cloaked and hidden, approaching Alpha Prime from broken space lanes and dark asteroid fields. Thousands of small ships swarmed with them. Not all warships. Some were decoys, others carried experimental weapons. All were part of the plan. On Alpha Prime, alarms spread as human signals appeared. At first faint, then stronger, then undeniable. The Emperor himself stood in the great command chamber, his eyes blazing. They dare bring war to our home? He roared, his voice shaking the chamber. Crush them! Erase them from existence. Fleets launched. Warships surged from the planet like black arrows. Their engines thundered, their weapons charged. The sky above Alpha Prime turned red with fire. The battle began. The first wave of human ships darted in. Fast and sharp, they struck the orbital stations, cutting their shields, tearing holes before vanishing into the dark. Alpha warships roared in pursuit, their cannons hammering. But for every ship they destroyed, more appeared from nowhere, swarming like shadows. From the surface, Alpha citizens stared at the sky in disbelief. For the first time, their world was not untouchable. For the first time, enemy fire lit their heavens. Fear spread in whispers on the Indomitable. Reeve gave the order. Phase 2. Dozens of small drones launched from hidden bays. Each carried explosives tied to gravity mines. They streaked through Alpha formations. Colliding, detonating, warships collided into one another, pulled off course by sudden wells of crushing force. Chaos spread. Alpha commanders shouted, "Hold formation! We are Alpha! We do not break!" But their voices cracked. The Indomitable surged forward. Leading the charge, her cannons burned blue, slicing into a battleship, tearing it apart. Reeve's eyes narrowed as the wreckage scattered, his voice calm. Push them back, but never hold still. They are stronger when we stand. They are weaker when we move. The humans struck like a storm. Everywhere at once, nowhere to be caught. Alpha Prime's skies turned into fire and shadow, exploding debris raining into its atmosphere. From his throne, the Emperor screamed, his claws digging into metal. "No! This is not possible! We are Alpha! We are eternal. His words echoed across command channels, desperate, furious. But then the impossible happened. The Indomitable and her fleet broke through, piercing the line of Alpha warships. Weapons struck them. The great barrier shook, cracks spreading across its surface. The people below screamed as the sky itself trembled. Reeves' officers stared, their voices hushed. "Captain, if we break their shield, their empire falls." Reeve nodded once, his voice steady. "Then we break it." Every human ship converged, their weapons burning, their engines screaming. Blue fire slammed into the planetary shield again and again. Each strike cracked it further, shards of light breaking apart. On Alpha Prime, the Emperor fell silent. For the first time in centuries, he felt fear claw his chest. The great shield, the pride of Alpha, the proof of their immortality, was failing. And then, with a sound like thunder across the stars, it shattered. The sky above Alpha Prime split open. The people below cried out in terror. War had come to their very heart. The empire that had called itself eternal had been breached. Reeve stood tall on the command deck, his voice carrying through every human ship. They thought they were untouchable. They thought they were Alpha, but today, the galaxy will see the truth. Today, we tear down their throne. The human fleet descended, engines roared, weapons flared. Alpha Prime's defenses crumbled. Its skies turned to fire, its fleets fell in ruins, and across the galaxy the message spread, whispered by every race that had lived in chains. The Alphas are not gods. They bleed, they burn. The fall of Alpha Prime had begun, and with it the age of arrogance ended. Humanity had struck at the heart of the Empire, and the heart was breaking. The skies above Alpha Prime were no longer golden with pride. They burned red with fire. Ships fell from orbit like dying stars, wreckage streaking across the twin suns' glow. The once perfect shield that had protected the Empire for centuries lay in shattered pieces. Humanity had done what no race ever dared. They had broken into the heart of Alpha, on the bridge of the Indomitable. Captain Reeve stood silent for a moment. His crew watched him, waiting. Around them, chaos raged. Alpha warships scattered, commanders screaming over broken comms. Pride had turned to panic. "It is time," Reeve said at last, his voice steady. "Unleash the weapon." The order carried across the fleet. Deep within the human flagship, engineers worked with trembling hands. The weapon was untested, dangerous. Some called it madness itself. But humanity had built it for this moment. For the day they would have to erase the impossible. It was not a cannon of metal and fire. It was a weapon that bent the fabric of existence. A pulse designed to unravel matter, to erase ships not just from space, but from reality itself. The countdown began. On Alpha Prime, the Emperor's voice thundered across every channel. His face burned with fury. "We are Alpha. We are eternal. They are nothing. Kill them." His words echoed in desperation. His fleets threw themselves forward in a final charge. The human fleet braced, shields flared, hulls groaned, human ships shattered under the wave of Alpha fire. Lives were lost. But they held long enough. The weapon fired, a ripple spread across the void. Not light, not sound, but something deeper. Reality itself seemed to bend. Alpha ships caught in its wave flickered. Their hulls twisted, their forms blurred. Then, nothing. Entire warships, crews, weapons, all vanished as if they had never existed. Gasps filled the human bridge. Even Reeves' officers froze in awe. For the first time in galactic history, warships were not just destroyed, they were erased. Panic ripped through the Alpha ranks. Commanders shouted orders, but their voices cracked. Some ships fled without permission. Others turned their cannons blindly on the human fleet. But fear had taken them. The untouchable were now untouchably broken. The Emperor roared from his throne, slamming claws into the golden arms. "Impossible! We are Alpha! We cannot be undone!" But even as he shouted, his own guards looked to the sky with terror. On the surface of Alpha Prime, Citizens ran through the streets staring upward. The pride they had worshipped all their lives was gone. The heavens rained with falling debris. The gods they had believed in were screaming. Their empire was bleeding out before their eyes. The Indomitable fired again. Another wave of reality-bending light tore through Alpha fleets. More ships vanished, fleets reduced to silence. The galaxy itself seemed to watch. Every enslaved race, every broken people, every hidden world tuned to the transmissions of the battle. They bleed, the whispers grew. They are not eternal. Reeves' crew sat in awe, but he did not smile. His eyes were cold. "Do not stop," he ordered. "Not until their fleets are dust." The weapon fired again and again. Alpha resistance crumbled. Their armadas fell, their skies emptied, their throne world burned. Inside the command halls of Alpha Prime, admirals begged the Emperor to retreat, to flee, to preserve what was left. But the Emperor's pride was a chain. He refused. "We are Alpha. We do not bow. We do not flee." His voice broke on the final word. And then his own palace shook. A barrage from orbit slammed into the black towers. The walls cracked. The throne shuddered. The Emperor fell to his knees, his crown slipping from his head. "Not possible," he whispered. His voice no longer thunder, only dust. "We were eternal." In that moment, the Alpha people knew. Their empire was finished. Their pride was a grave. Their gods had been nothing but flesh. The human fleet stood in the skies above. Silent now, the weapon cooling, the wreckage drifting. They had not just defeated Alpha. They had obliterated them, torn their pride from reality itself. On the Indomitable, Captain Reeves' voice was low but clear. "The galaxy has lived in their shadow for too long. Tonight that shadow ends." He looked out at the burning world below. They thought themselves Alpha, the first and the last. But tonight, we showed them. Humans decide reality. Across the galaxy, the message spread like wildfire. Races once enslaved lifted their heads. Chains suddenly felt lighter. Hope surged where there had only been silence. The Alphas begged no mercy. They offered none to others, and so none was given. Humanity had carved its mark into the stars, not with arrogance, but with fire and fury. The empire that once ruled the galaxy was gone, not defeated but erased, and the galaxy trembled. For if humans could obliterate the Alphas from reality, what else might they one day choose to erase? The great shield that had stood for centuries lay broken in shards across the atmosphere. The fleets that once guarded the Empire's skies were gone. Not destroyed, but erased. Their names would never be written in history. Their crews would never be remembered. It was as if they had never existed at all. Across the galaxy, silence followed. The Alphas had ruled for ages. Their word law, their pride unshaken, but now there was nothing. Whole systems that had once bowed in terror stared into the void. Unsure what came next for the first time in living memory, the galaxy no longer had a master. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Reeves stood surrounded by his crew. Their faces were scarred, tired, some hollow with grief, but their eyes carried a light. They had seen the impossible. They had struck down gods. They had proven that the so-called eternal could bleed. "We've won," whispered a young officer. Her voice trembled as though she could not believe it herself. Reeves' gaze was steady as he looked at the burning world below. His voice quiet but sharp. "No, we've ended them. But victory carries its own weight." The crew fell silent. They all knew what he meant. The galaxy had been freed, but it had also been broken. Power once held in the iron fist of Alpha was now scattered like dust. Worlds would rise, others would fall, and wars might burn brighter than ever. Humanity had shattered the old order, and in its place stood only uncertainty. Yet in that silence, something else stirred. Hope on distant worlds. Slaves who had bowed their heads for generations stood upright. Chains were cast aside. Families whispered to one another. The Alphas are gone, the humans have broken them. On planets of ash, children who had never known freedom lifted their eyes to the sky, wondering if tomorrow might finally be theirs. The galaxy had always feared Alpha now. They feared something new. Humanity. Not because of cruelty, but because of possibility. If humans could erase Alpha from existence, what else could they do? Would they become the new tyrants, or would they build something better? Reeve knew the question hung in every mind, his crew, his people, even himself. He stood silent for a long moment, then spoke, his words carrying across every human ship, broadcast to every colony. They called themselves Alpha. The first and the last, they ruled with arrogance. They enslaved, they burned, they crushed, and they believed no one could touch them. Tonight we proved them wrong. Tonight we showed the galaxy that no empire is eternal, no arrogance lasts forever, they are gone. Not just defeated, but erased, and from their ashes. Something new will rise, his voice hardened. But we must not become them. We fight not to rule, but to survive, to protect, to remember. Let the galaxy see that humanity is not Alpha. Humanity is human. And that will always be enough. The words spread across every comm, echoing from colony to colony, from the frozen moons to the burning deserts. The message carried humans had not risen for pride. They had risen for survival, and in that survival lay their strength. On alien worlds, whispers turned to voices. Voices turned to songs in the ruins of Alpha chains. The enslaved shouted in joy. Some cried, some fell to their knees. Some simply looked at the stars and smiled for the first time in their lives. The galaxy was changing, and everyone knew it. Back aboard the Indomitable, silence filled the bridge again. The war was over, but the weight of what they had done pressed heavy. They had not just beaten an empire, they had removed it from reality. No history would remain of Alpha's glory, only their fall. Reeve closed his eyes for a moment. He saw the faces of those lost, the names of ships destroyed. He felt the fire of vengeance, but also the ache of cost, he whispered to himself. Words only the stars could hear. This was the price. Outside, the galaxy turned slowly, its stars endless and cold. But in those stars now lived a new truth. Humanity was no longer hidden, no longer underestimated. They had stepped into the light, not as prey but as hunters, not as slaves but as survivors. The story spread in every tongue, across every world. The Alphas believed they were eternal, but humans obliterated them from reality. And in that truth lay a warning. To those who would rise in arrogance, to those who would rule with cruelty, to those who would think themselves gods, the galaxy would remember the night Alpha Prime fell, the night humans sharpened the blade of reality itself, the night eternity ended and humanity began. The flames of Alpha Prime still burned, but above them the stars shone bright. And in those stars the future waited, wide and unknown. Humanity looked at it not with fear, but with fire, because they had proven something no empire could ever take away. Humans decide reality.